Okay, we are now ready for Chapter 17, Section 1, Part 2. In our first part of this section, we heard about Lincoln's plan to bring the Southern states back into the Union. We heard about the Radical Republicans' plan, which is called the Wade-Davis Bill. Lincoln's is called the 10% Plan. And I told you that there were actually 3 points of view as to how to bring the states back into the Union. That third plan we're going to talk about today. But before we get to that, before Lincoln could actually put all of his, plans into motion, before he could come up with a compromise with the Radical Republicans, Lincoln's plan being kind of mild, the Radical Republicans' plan being kind of harsh. Unfortunately, 5 days after the war ended, so the war ended when Robert E. Lee surrendered to Ulysses S. Grant on April 9th. On April 14th, that's just 5 days later, President Lincoln was shot at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. So Lincoln was there to see a play. It was a comedy. It was called Our American Cousin. It was a play that had been done all across the United States. It was very popular, a play that people would go back to see over and over and over again. So he was there in his presidential box up high, and his assassin, as you might know, was John Wilkes Booth. John Wilkes Booth was an actor, so he was also a Southern sympathizer. He was very upset that the war ended. In fact, he had been planning actually to kidnap the president and the Secretary of War and other people to use that to end the war in favor of the Confederacy. But when Robert E. Lee surrendered, those plans that John Wilkes Booth had been making were useless because the war was over. So he was very upset, and he decides that instead of kidnapping the president, he's going to assassinate him. And so several high-ranking officials were to be murdered that night. They were to be assassinated, including the vice president, who was Andrew Johnson, Secretary of War. And John Wilkes Booth was the only one who succeeded in assassinating his target, basically. So John Wilkes Booth, being the actor, he shows up at the theater. It's not unusual that he was there. He had done shows there, and he knew the play very well. And so he knew when the right time would be for him to enter Lincoln's box. The guard that was stationed there had stepped out for a few minutes. He went across the street to get something to drink, and that was when John Wilkes Booth walked into the back of a box. He had a small gun. It was a Derringer. It only had one shot in it. So it was one shot, and that was it. He shoots Lincoln in the back of the head. Lincoln falls forward. There was a general with Lincoln in the box with him. His name is General Rathbone. John Wilkes Booth has a knife, and he cuts his arm. He slashes his arm, and he jumps off of the balcony, the box, onto the stage, but his boot gets stuck in the bunting or the drapery, saying that was the president's box. He kind of lands awkwardly, breaks his leg as he lands on the stage. Being an actor, he gets very dramatic, and he puts up his knife, and he goes, "Sic semper tyrannis," which is Latin, all you Latin students, for "thus to tyrants," meaning, he killed Lincoln. He thought he was a tyrant. And he runs out the back of the theater and escapes. Lincoln dies a few hours later across the street at the Peterson House. Now, John Wilkes Booth is going to be tracked down. He's going to be cornered in a barn. He is not going to surrender, and they are basically going to shoot him to death. The rest of his gang does get caught. Their plot to kill these high officials in the U.S. that same night. 8 people were convicted. 4 people were hung, made examples of, and the others were sentenced to life in prison. And so that is how that ends. Now, the unfortunate part of this is that when Lincoln dies, Vice President Andrew Johnson becomes the President of the United States. When the president dies, the vice president takes over. Now, so a little background on Andrew Johnson. He was a senator from Tennessee, a Southern senator. When Tennessee secedes from the Union, Andrew Johnson was the only senator, and actually in all the Southern states, the only senator to not go with his state. Of the 11 states that seceded from the Union, Andrew Johnson was the only senator to stay with the Union, which is, it caught the eye of the president and other Republicans, but he was, in fact, a Democrat. Well, you might be wondering, how did he become vice president? Lincoln, when he was running for re-election in 1964, a year before the war was going to end, he thought it would balance his ticket to kind of like, reward Andrew Johnson for being the only Democrat to not leave. And he knew that in 1964 the war was close to ending, and he thought if he could have this Southern senator as the vice president, it would help kind of bridge the gap between Southern states and Northern states. As he was looking toward the future of the Union being reunited. He thought it would be a good thing. All right. Well, it wasn't a good thing. It's ironic that Andrew Johnson becomes the president right at the end of the Civil War, literally 5 days after it ended, because he was the worst possible person to be put in charge of Reconstruction. So the third plan for Reconstruction that I had mentioned yesterday is Andrew Johnson's plan, and it is called Restoration. Restoration. Now, the reason why this is such an ironic twist in American history is that Andrew Johnson was actually a racist. He was not interested in helping African Americans at all. The only thing he was interested in is punishing the wealthy class of Southerners, who he felt actually tricked Southern states into seceding. So he was very much against secession, but he was not for African American rights at all. And so that is the irony, to put someone like that in charge of Reconstruction of the South after the Civil War, with slavery being abolished. His plan was really more about getting back at these wealthy Southerners who he felt tricked the South. So look at his plan. I know it's a lot there, but his plan basically said Southerners would be granted amnesty once they swore an oath of loyalty to the Union. High-ranking Confederate officials and wealthy landowners could only be pardoned by applying personally to the president, which was Andrew Johnson. He basically wanted them to beg. He does, in fact, end up pardoning many, many high-ranking Confederate officials, including the vice president, who actually later on you'll see goes on to become a senator, which is crazy. So basically, this was his way of attacking the wealthy leaders of the South, who he basically had a chip on his shoulder about, because he grew up poor and he grew up being stigmatized and by these wealthy people, and really developed a white supremacy type of attitude, which he takes into Reconstruction, and that is the irony of the entire thing. Only whites that swore their loyalty and had been pardoned could be allowed to vote, which was basically could be anyone who was in the Confederacy. Before a state could re-enter the Union, its constitutional convention had to denounce secession first and abolish slavery, and states had to ratify the 13th Amendment passed in January of 1865 that abolished slavery. So that 13th Amendment was actually passed before the end of the war, and Southern states had to approve it before they could be brought in. So by the end of 1865, Johnson said, hey, restoration's done, because, almost all the former Confederate states had done what he had asked, except for Texas, and so he thought that his job was done. But in fact, his job was far from over, and you will see how Johnson, in the next section, Johnson and the radical Republicans in Congress are going to butt their heads so much. There's going to be so much animosity between them. He's going to do such a bad job at Reconstruction that it's going to lead to Andrew Johnson actually being the first president in history to be impeached. And we will tell that story tomorrow or the day after. But so this brings us to the end of section 1, and we'll do section 2 tomorrow or the day after. And thanks for coming to my Reconstruction TED Talk.